Izzy, how are you?
Thank God I'm good. We had a bar mitzvah 2 weeks ago when you were in Israel, in
Also,
Ottawa.
who got, your oldest son got, he's in Ottawa? Is that in Ottawa?
Yeah, Tzvi Chaim. And
Very,
my son from Israel was here.
oh, nice,
Yeah,
nice. Where
yeah.
does he live in Israel?
He lives in Or Sameach.
Okay, nice. In Malo Daphne then, I guess, huh?
I think so. I'm not sure. He wants
Okay,
us to. Okay.
all right, so why don't we get started? Um, I should have the name of the new sefer very soon. I'm looking at a few that I'm trying to narrow down. And I hope to be able to have, it could be another Sephardi posek that we'll be looking at. I'm not sure yet. Because
like Smarties.
it's interesting, the Sephardi Sfarim are structured in this way where they're concise shuvas that we can digest. You know, they're not too over the top. The problem is some of the Litvisha Sfarim are like so pilpulistic that you lose half the audience by the time you're done, or 90% of the audience, whatever. Anyway, we have another dog tshuva today. Okay, so we learned previously about whether you're allowed to have a dog, whether you're allowed to feed your dog non-kosher dog food. And we said that under limited conditions, both are permissible. But you have to make sure that your dog is not a wild dog, is not a dangerous dog, and things like that.
So just to finish with that, so to get a Rottweiler or one of those things, a pit bull, that would be problematic.
100% problematic. Yeah. Yeah. Unless this dog lives, you have it, let's say, in a warehouse as a security dog, and the whole function, this dog doesn't interact with the regular population. And the function of the dog is to secure the area.
A lot of people have those dogs. Pit bulls and.
Yeah, Marv was just telling me that there's a law in Ontario that there are certain species of dog that you're not allowed to have.
There's a Dog Owners Responsibility Act that bans pit bulls, like 6 breeds, pit bull terriers, whatever you want to call them, and makes liability for the dog owner if it bites somebody, whatever, strict liability. Basically, hardly any defenses unless you provoke it, or it's your fault. But other than that, if dog bites, you're done. Then you have to
Yeah, even a Fifi bites, you know. Yeah, the little Fifi.
And just a comment also, you talk about if a dog will bark and people get scared and they have a miscarriage and stuff. I've seen, and I know of people who are so petrified of dogs, they have such a phobia. It's like, it's crazy.
Hello,
They
my wife.
They can't be in the house, even if it's in a room.
Yeah.
They go crazy. Reba had a girl at her house once and someone came over with a dog. I've never seen it. It was like a meltdown. So it is real.
It is real. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I'm trying to, my daughter-in-law has a dog and I love the dog. I love dogs, but my wife just is very nervous around dogs. She's gotten used to the fact that they bring over the dog, but she doesn't like touching the animal, right? It freaks her out. She doesn't like animals in general. Like, oh, if that's something I might eat, I have to be around it, Yeah. So anyway.
I could see Karen.
I don't want to hurt you. I just want to eat you. Okay, from Frisco Kid. Okay. Okay. Bedin Adam Shahara Kelev Hamazik Acherim. So a person goes ahead and kills a dog that had injured others in the past. Okay, basically he's a vigilante dog killer. Okay, so he knows that this dog is a menace, and he preemptively goes ahead and kills the dog.
You look at it one way. I was looking at it the other way, that the dog is a bad dog.
He is a bad dog, but
You admitted the person's a bad for like. for
Well, he's a
dog owner.
vigilante. He's basically taking the law into his own hands. So are you allowed to do that? So Kelev no sheikh, shenifsak al yedei beis din shemitzvah lahargo. So in this case, not only is this a bad dog, but the beis din has already paskined that this dog must be put to sleep, must be destroyed. He's got a criminal record already. V'kodam hashachen lahargo lifnei shehispik bal hakelev lahargo. And a neighbor came along and I guess, decided to put a little poison in the rat poison in the dog's dog food before the owner had an opportunity to take him to the vet and humanely put the animal down. So the question is, ha'imhu chayav b'tashlume hakelev? Does he owe any legal restitution to the owner of the dog to pay for the death of the dog? If you kill someone's property, if you kill someone's animal, clearly you have to make restitution, right? That animal has value. But here the animal seemingly has no value because he's already a condemned man. The dog's already on death row.
Dead dog walking.
Yeah, dead dog walking. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, good morning, Israel. Okay, so that's the question. And so there's some gray area here. On the one hand, if you harm another person's property, if you damage another person's animal, you have to pay. But on the other hand, the dog has already been condemned to death, and therefore it may not have any value. So let's take a look at the tshuva. Nemar b'Torah lo v'lo tasim damim beveitecha. The Torah says you may not place blood in your house. Now, in what context is that? Remember, we learned this pasuk before. There's a mitzvah in the Torah to create a ma'akeh, a parapet or a fence around your roof that's used that people use. And the Torah says you must build the parapets so you do not place blood in your home. You cannot have anything hazardous in your house. Okay, so obviously it relates not just to rooftops that have a ledge, but it could also pertain to having other hazardous materials or hazardous animals in your house. And since there's an obligation to remove the evil from your house, you also are not allowed to raise any kind of creature that could cause harm. There's these exotic pet stores where you can buy boa constrictors. It's crazy what you can get a hold of, and it can be very serious. And cats also, I should say, cats can cause a lot of damage also if a cat is not declawed. Some of these cats are, I don't like cats, but anyway, umitzvah. All right. So this is a continuation of the previous tshuva. Umitzvah al haba'olim levo'er es hamazik min ha'olam kidei shelo yazik es habrios, and it's an obligation upon the owner of this creature that is causing harm to destroy the creature so that it doesn't cause future injury. V'im haba'olim einam osim es hamitzvah hazois mitzvah al kol echad l'salik es hamazik. Now, if the owner refuses to do so and doesn't do the halachically mandated thing, then it is a mitzvah for any person to rise up and to remove the source of damage. Al kain hashochen shehikdim laharoges hakelev poter mitashlumav. And therefore, if a neighbor comes along and kills the dog before the owner has a chance to put it to sleep at the vet, he doesn't have to pay anything because he's within his halachic rights to remove the evil from the midst of that household.
Make a difference how he kills the dog? Is there an additional sarvalachim?
Well, yes, you have to kill the animal humanely so as not to cause tsar b'alechaim. However, that has nothing to do with tashlumin, with payment. But the Makor Baruch brings a story from the Gemara. He says, "K'de'isa b'bava kama shehaya chatul shekata et yado shel tinok." The Gemara brings a story of a cat that clawed a child and caused his hand to be destroyed. Nebuch. V'yatsa Rav v'darash berabim chatul ra muter lahargo v'asr l'kaimo. And Rav, the Amora, made a public lecture and said that if you have a bad cat, it is permissible for anyone to kill that cat. V'asr l'kaimo. And it is prohibited to let that cat live. Ve'ein bo mishum gezel, ve'ein mishum hashavas aveda leba'alim. There's no prohibition of stealing. There's no prohibition of hashavas aveda, of restoring that cat to its owner. The cat has to go. He's a bad cat.
That would go over with cat lovers.
Yeah, I know. I'm suspicious of cat lovers. I think there's something psychologically wrong with them. Okay, sorry, I don't mean to offend anybody. Upasak harambam, datul ra shahareget haktanim, asr lekaimo vein bo mishum gezel, vein bo mishum hashavas aveda, afalpi, and so this is the psak of the Rambam. He says exactly what the Gemara says, and he says there's no financial obligation upon the person who destroys the cat, afalpi she'oro mo'il, even though you could argue that the owner could have benefited from the hide of the cat. Maybe it's got a beautiful hide. Like maybe it's one of these exotic cats that has like a spotted, looks like a cougar or something, and so it's got nice spots or whatever, a leopard or like a leopard kind of cat. Afal pisha oro mo'il, even if its hide has a value, ela kol hamotzo zachabo v'hargo v'ho'or shalo ad kan l'shano. The psak is that even financially, because this cat is usher to live, anyone who finds the cat can kill it and keep the pelt. Whereas you can actually financially benefit by killing the cat. V'chein pasuk hatur, and the Tur paskins the same way. Umashman b'lashonam dedavka chatul shahareg mutar laharga v'chanir garsu kain b'gemara. And it seems that it's only with a cat that kills that that the Chazal were so liberal in allowing anyone to just take the law into their own hands. Avol Maran b'Shulchan Aruch kasav b'zelashana, but the Shulchan Aruch says in the following: Chatul rash shemazik liktanim ein sarch lahashiva lebalim. That if he has a bad cat that causes harm or damage to children, you don't have to return it to its owner. Elakol hamotzo hargo b'zocha ba'oro akan l'shano. Anyone who finds it can kill the cat and even benefit from the hide. Mashma dafilu mazik ba'alma yachal lahargo, which seems like even if the cat doesn't cause mortal harm, but it just causes injury, like the cat scratched the kid's face and now the kid is scarred and traumatized, right? So the father or mother of that child can just take the cat, imprison the cat, and just run over the cat with a car or whatever they need to do to put the cat down. Thank you, Moish. Alpizeh pasak Rabbeinu Hagon hamachaber shlita b'nidon didan shahakelev noshech umazik hacherim demutar lahargo. And it's on that basis that Rav Shiraga paskins the way he paskins. Umavur mikol zeh degam acherim yicholim lahargo et hachatul v'lav dafka haba'olim. So what emerges from this is that anyone has a right to kill the cat or dog that's injuring others. It doesn't, that the onus is not just upon the owner. V'chein mavur b'beis Yosef the kelev ra o kol davar hamazik acherim chayiv kol echad lahargo u'lesalek es hadavar hamazik kedei shelo yazik acherim. That's actually the psak of the Beis Yosef, that if you have an injurious creature or anything, like doesn't even have to be a living creature. It could be, let's say a person has a device in his house that, I don't know, what can we think of? Well, that's not, yeah, that's a little touchy. What would it be? What could be something that that causes injury to others? What if it's like what? A rebel vacuum cleaner. Not sure if that would fall into that because that has to be operated. I'm thinking that maybe he has something in the front of his house that every time you walk past his house, you get injured. Like, for example, let's say he's got thorns and thistles, or he's got a wall that has nails, electrified fence or nails protruding out of a wall that is accessible to the sidewalk. anyone can take the law into their own hands. Or let's say he's got branches of a thorny bush that's protruding out into the public domain. Anyone can take the law into their own hands and trim that back without having to ask permission. And therefore, anyone who does so doesn't have to pay. Let's say the owner says, "Hey, what right do you have that that thorny bush? I was planning to use that for firewood. I'm going to charge you for it." And no, he doesn't have any right to do so because I was doing a mitzvah. I was preventing damage from being caused to other people. Mashakasav Rabbein Arbona Machaber Shlita Bedin Kelev Hanoshech Shebaolav Chayav Lisalek Hezeko. I refer you, Rav Shiraga has another sefer where he talks about a biting dog that the owner has an obligation to remove that dog or to get rid of the dog. Okay, so that's what we've seen so far. Aval im ha'ba'alim rotzim ba'atzmam l'kayim es ha'mitzvah hem kodmim l'chol adam. He says, here's the thing. Up until now, what we've been discussing is if the owner has been recalcitrant and reluctant to kill the dog. But let's say the owner says, I'm taking the dog to the vet right away, and he wants to kill the dog. Then another person is not allowed to take that mitzvah away from him. And if someone else decides to take the law into their own hands and shoots the dog or in some way harms the dog before the guy had a chance, like he just got the psak in based in paskins, he's got to destroy the animal. He says, okay, I'm taking Fifi. We're going right now to the vet. And a guy comes along and grabs the dog and strangles it instead. Okay, so yesh ladun oso kedin chotef mitzvah mechavero. So we've learned this concept before that you're not allowed to steal someone else's mitzvah. And if you do, like there was a case in the Gemara that what we were going to see, and we'll review it in just a minute, that I think it was Rav Nachman who assessed a person 10 golden pieces for stealing another person's mitzvah. You have to pay someone 10 gold pieces for taking away your opportunity to do a mitzvah. So the classic case in Maseches Chulin was the person shechts a chicken. The person who was the shaychet has the mitzvah of kisui hadam, of covering the blood in earth. Right, because all birds have to have their blood covered, right, after their shechita. So the im echad hiktim es hashochet v'kisa es adam ba'afer tzarich l'shalem lo asar zehuvim. Let's say a person chaps a rein and he pushes the shochet away and he pours the earth over the blood himself. So Rav Nachman in that Gemara assessed that person 10 gold pieces because you took away someone else's mitzvah. Remember we learned this before? I'm trying to remember in what context. Yeah, a guy ran up to the bima and chapped the aliyah. Yeah. Uvigemara shamashma the misha kivtu oto levarech birkat hamazon benasan lo koshel bracha uba echad v'chataf mimenu. So the Gemara, from this Gemara, we could infer, let's say a guy is honored with the zimun at benching. It's going to lead the mezumin, and another guy grabs a cup and starts instead of him. We had a guy in yeshiva. I remember that's going back 50 years ago. Well, not 50, 40 years ago. 40 years ago, we had a guy in yeshiva who used to make a joke that at Sheva Brachas, right, he was just a bacher, so they weren't going to honor him with a bracha. And so what he would do is, as they were passing the kosher, and he would say really loud, Baruch ato Hashem Elokeinu melech olam sha'akol nihya bidvaro, and he would drink a cup of soda, just to make a joke, like pretending that he was one of the Sheva Brachas, but he wasn't. Okay. Anyway,
you had to be there,
I guess you had to be there, right?
I want to know what he's doing today.
That's very funny.
Yeah. Like 40 years later, yeah, he's He's a mortician. Yeah. Anyway, sarach l'shalim lo arba'im zehuvim keneged ha'arba bracha shel birkas hamazon. So there are some poskim who would argue that this guy was going to be leading 4 blessings of birkas hamazon. So each blessing of birkas hamazon is worth 10 gold pieces. So the fine would be even higher if you chop someone's zimun. Ki hagemara sham misaperes ma'isa shabat tzeduki echad eitzel rabbeinu hakadosh va'omar lo. The Gemara tells a story about a Sadducee who was a critic of the rabbinic community, of the oral tradition, and he comes to Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi and he says to him, "Kasuv ki hine yotzer harim ubore ruach." So there's a pasuk in Amos that says that, behold, the former of mountains and the creator of wind. And it sounds like there's 2 different parties, or at least that's the way that Tzeduki wanted to read it. Mi sheyotzer harim lo bore ruach. The former of mountains is not the creator of wind. So Amar Rav Rebbe l'Tzeduki shoita tamshich es hapasuk Hashem tzivakos shemo. So he said, "You idiot! Look at the end of the pasuk. It says the name of that self-same entity is the Lord of Hosts. Oso echad sheyotzer es haharim hu shabor es haruach hu shmo Hashem tzivakos." It's the same entity, right? Amar lo oso hamin l'Rebbe tein lizman shlosha yomim va'ani achzer l'chad teshuva. So the Tzeduki felt that he was stumped, but he said, "Give me 3 days, and I'm going to prove to you that there are multiple gods." And so, I'll have a valid response that is provable even from your own Tanakh. So Rabbeinu Hakadosh Yosef Shlosha Yomim B'Tainis. So Rebbe fasted for 3 days because he was worried maybe this was a public thing and this was like a what is it called? At the OK Corral, what was it called? The showdown. It was a showdown at the OK Corral, and everyone was looking. And Rebbe, outfoxed the Tzeduki, and the Tzeduki said, "I'll be back in 3 days, and I'll show you, Rabbi." La'achar tzom shel shlosha yomim. So after Rebbe fasted for 3 days, kisharatza Rabbeinu Hakadosh lechol mishahu dafak bedelas. Just as he was about to take his first bite after fasting for 3 days, he gets a knock at the door. Amar echad hashamashim l'Rebbe hatzeduki dofek badelas. So one of his students said to him, or one of his attendants said to him, "The Sadducee is knocking at the door." So Amar lahem b'yitnu biverosi rosh. He quoted a pasuk from Tehillim, Klomer halo ba kedei lemarer es sudasi. That Rebbe said, "Oi, this guy is coming to embitter my meal." Amar lo hatzduki shahaya badeles, ani lo oto hatzduki, ani tzduki acher, ani mevaser tov. So the tzduki hears Rebbe's groaning, and he says, "Oh, I'm not that same tzduki from 3 days ago. I'm a different tzduki. I have good news. Bati levaser lecha, shahatzduki hazeh shesha'al et ha'she'ela, lo matzat shuva, va'olo legag, v'nofal mehagag v'mes." I'm here to give you good news. The Tzeduki that said he would come back in 3 days could not find a valid response to your interpretation, and therefore threw himself off the roof and died. So Amar lo Rabbeinu Hakadosh lamevaser hazeh, keven shebisarta b'sura tova ritzoncha le'echol itanu. So Rebbe said, "You've brought us good tidings. Would you like to join me at the meal? Let's eat together." Okay, it's a good thing that, you hear Osama bin Laden is, been killed. Sinwar has been killed. You make a l'chaim. Come sit, join us. Amar lo ha'mevaser hazeh came. So the person, the Tzeduki, the second Tzeduki said, "Sure, I'll be happy to join you." Acharei sha'achlu v'shasu, Amar lo Rebbe. So after they had eaten and drunk, Rebbe said to the second Tzeduki, "Kos shel bracha ech ata shoteh o arbaim zuhuvim ata notel." So Rebbe said to him, "Would you like to drink the kos shel bracha, or would you like to receive 40 gold pieces?" Which is a strange question. But what does it mean? Kolomar Ratza Rebbe shahatstuki hazeh yistalik v'lo ya'ane amen al arba brachot shel birkat hamazon v'yekabel schar. Rebbe, realizing this tzeduki was a thorn in the side of the rabbinic community, because after all, even though he invited him to eat, he still realized that he was an enemy of the rabbinic community. So he wanted him to skedaddle before joining him in Birkas Hamazon. So he's basically said to him, he wanted him to leave and to not answer Amen on the 4 blessings of Birkas Hamazon, because that would provide him with some kind of merit. And therefore he said to him, would you like to remain to hear the blessings of Birkas Hamazon and answer Amen? That was his first option. Koshel bracha shota. Would you like to drink or partake of the kos of Birkas Hamazon? Oh, to kabel arboim zuhuvim v'telech miyad. Or your other option is you get 40 gold pieces and you're out of here before we bench. In other words, because I'm depriving you of the opportunity to participate in the benching, I would have to pay you 40 gold pieces. So Amar lo hamavaser kos shel bracha ani shoteh. So the Tzeduki said to him, I'd rather partake of the cup of Birkas Hamazon. Klomar ani rotze lihishaer al acharei Birkat Hamazon umevater al arbaim zehuvim. I would rather participate in the benching and I forgo the 40 gold pieces. So this guy seems to be like a bit of a tzaddik, even though he's a tzeduki.
Stuckey's bench or no?
Well, that's the question. What was the status of these tzedukim at that time? So it's really unclear, but from the Gemara, it sounds like that Rebbe did not want him to participate because he felt that the guy would be taking some kind of spiritual benefit out of it. So Yatza Tabat Kol Va'amra, Kos Shel Bracha Shave Arba'im Zehuvim. And a heavenly voice emanated at that moment and said, from this whole thing, you see that participating in Birkas Hamazon is worth 40 gold pieces. Umizeh huchicha haGemara shal kol bracha she'adam chataf mechavero tzarich l'shalim lo asar zehuvim. And the Gemara demonstrates from this story that if you take away someone's opportunity to lead the benching, it's not just 10 zehuvim. Each bracha is 10 zehuvim, and there's 4 brachas in Birkas Hamazon. So you're entitled to compensation of 40 gold pieces. So the question is, v'lichora, the question is like this: Eich efshar lomar sheschar bracha o mitzvah hu asar zehuvim. How can you possibly say that the reward for, or the compensation for a bracha or a mitzvah is 10 gold pieces? Halo kasuv kol chafatzecha lo yishvu ba, d'chol cheftzei ha'olam lo shavim neged mitzvah echad. A mitzvah is priceless. As it says in Mishlei, all of your desires, Hashem, have no value. They exceed any possible value. You can't place a price tag on a mitzvah. So how can you say that you have to pay a guy 10 gold pieces? It's worth much more valuable. V'yatera mizu, lama hachotef mishalim l'bal ha-mitzvah asar zehuvim, halo bal ha-mitzvah ratza l'kaim et ha-mitzvah ba'atzma. And furthermore, why is the chaper of a mitzvah obligated to pay the other guy 10 gold pieces? Halo ba'al ha-mitzvah ratza l'kaim et ha-mitzvah ba'atzma. He says the person who was originally granted the opportunity to lead the benching, let's say, right, he wanted to do the mitzvah himself. V'kaim b'lan chashav adam lasos mitzvah v'nem nas v'lo asa, ma'ale alav ha'kasav ki'ilu asa. We know that there's a Gemara that says, it's a very famous Gemara, that if you had intended to do a mitzvah and something occurred that did not allow you to do the mitzvah, Hashem rewards you as if you did the mitzvah. So if Hashem is already rewarding me for my intent to do the mitzvah, even though this guy chapped my opportunity to lead the benching, nimsa shezeh shechataf mimenu lo chasar mimenu klum. So why should he have to pay me 10 gold pieces if I've already been rewarded for doing the mitzvah? It's as if I already did the mitzvah, right? Which is an interesting question, because at face value, you could very simply answer that it's a rabbinic kanas. The rabbis imposed the penalty. So, kvar amad bazeh b'chidushay hachasam sofer. Chasam sofer deals with this question. The tirates sheyesh hefresh bein ha'osa mitzvah u'makabel schar onenas v'lo asa u'makabel schar. And he answers that there's this fundamental difference between a person who does a mitzvah and is rewarded for that mitzvah, versus onenas v'lo asa mekabel schar, or a person who couldn't do the mitzvah for some mishap reason, who also receives a reward. Ki zeh ha'osa u'mekabel schar oved es Hashem b'simcha u'v'tuv levav u'mekabel schar ala simcha gamkein. He says that there are two different categories. If I actually did the mitzvah, Hashem rewards me for the act of the mitzvah, and Hashem also rewards me for the simcha that I had while performing the mitzvah. But v'zeh shenenas v'lo asa et mitzvah, lamrot shemala lav hakasuv ki'ilu asa, the person who couldn't do the mitzvah is rewarded as if he did the mitzvah. Aval hu mitzta'er al shelo zacha lasos ritzon Hashem b'fal, but he's also in pain. He's unhappy because he wasn't able to actively fulfill Hashem's will. So you're paying him not for the schar that he lost, you're paying him for pain and suffering, that he wasn't able to do the mitzvah.
Wow.
Okay. Adkan, what this has to do with the guy who wanted to kill his dog and someone else took it from him, we'll continue this tshuva tomorrow. Okay.
Thank you, Rabbi.